So we got something absolutely crazy going on in the Midnight Beta. The current chieftain of the Blackrock clan and one of the Horde leaders is outright joined the Sons of Lothar, also known as the Alliance Expeditionary Force, also known as the anti-orc organization created for the sole purpose of destroying the orcs and their planet. To make it even crazier, they were named after Anduin Lothar, who was defeated in a duel by Orgrim Doomhammer, whose right hand was this same orc, Eitrigg. Now, at Midnight, it appears that the organization is all about peace and tolerance, while faction conflict is brewing at the same time. This definitely does sound absolutely ridiculous, but what is really going on? What do we have right now in the beta? And why is Blizzard doubling down on this? Orgrim offers the best coaching service and it can save you time. So Orgrim just skipped the ad for you and it can help you skip a lot of trial and error with their coaching service. So check out my code Dorons10 to get 10% of every order until the end of the year. Unfortunately, with the Midnight Beta, it does seem like for every kind of good storyline and some really interesting potential that happens, we seem to get something really strange. I mean, first, it was literally retconning alternate Draenor and the Garrosh hate, but that was thrown out of the Midnight Alpha. But this storyline is still here. I mean, we got a whole cinematic showing the famous battle around the Blackrock mountain when Anduin Lothar fell, and some really crazy developments going on. To make matters worse, there has been a few iterations of this in the Alpha and the Beta with actual recorded voice lines. So it doesn't seem like they're actually going to backtrack on this and to remove this entire questline. The big reveal is that Eitrigg, one of the current Horde leaders, the literal chieftain of the Blackrock clan, has joined the Sons of Lothar. And before we dive into it, let's just notice there really seem to be some sort of dissonance going on with this faction war. I mean, if you guys have been keeping up, you know that the faction war is actually coming at midnight. I've talked about this for the past year. We have multiple scenarios currently happening, and for the past 2 years, the factions were all but a thing of the past, but now Blizzard started foreshadowing that the faction war will come in interviews. They did this for the past year or two, and now in Midnight Beta we have multiple scenarios with the Blood Elves rebelling against the Alliance forces, the occupation of Silvermoon, and we got straight out battles between our factions in Voidstorm. They also hinted that this is just the start. We won't get an all-out crazy faction conflict like BFA was, but they told us that we can expect to be back around the vanilla times where the factions kinda cooperate, but they are not in great relations. Well, that is all great until in Midnight we got the craziest storyline yet. A literal orcish leader joins a full-on Alliance faction as this weird sign of peace, or what is to come, which kind of entirely conflicts this entire faction strife. They're foreshadowing at the same time. Just a really quick backstory if you're not familiar why the community is so outraged with this and why this is so crazy. So it's not about the neutral race, like neutral characters. I mean, we've seen orcs and such in these like cross-faction organizations many times. You can see all those guys in the Argent Crusade and these Paladin orders. However, Eitrigg joining the Sons of Lothar is just absolutely crazy if you guys are familiar with the old school lore. So check this out. Eitrigg was born in the Blackrock clan, and when they were attacking the Draenei and when the first Horde was formed and Blackhand was war chief, Eitrigg, Orgrim, and Saurfang were one of the lead guys behind this entire machinery. Then, when Blackhand was overthrown by Orgrim Doomhammer, Eitrigg was literally his right hand, super close, about as responsible for everything as Orgrim himself. Now, at the same time, Anduin Lothar was the main Alliance champion, and one of the big events that happened was the Battle of the Blackrock Mountain, where the war chief Orgrim smashed Anduin Lothar with his Doomhammer, which led to the challenge by Tyrellian to overturn the tide of battle. Tyrellian at the time was a young commander. Now, who are the Sons of Lothar? I mean, Sons of Lothar are literally the anti-orc organization. Their second name is the Alliance Expedition. Literally, they are known as the Alliance Expedition. They named themselves, like this expedition named themselves in honor of Anduin Lothar, who fell in the battle against Orgrim, and their sole purpose was to go to the homeland of the orcs to finish them for good, and as you can see, they were successful in that. Since the destruction of Outland, we've been cut off from them, only meeting them in TBC when we once again reunited with Khadgar, then Trollbane and the others. However, keep in mind, these guys are the Alliance expedition that had one goal, that is to destroy the orcs in their homeland, and they were successful in that. Since then, they have been kind of irrelevant, at least in the grand scheme of things, but they still exist as an organization, like an organization of veterans. Now, with this context, you can see how absolutely crazy is that the right hand of Orgrim, Eitrigg decided to join the Sons of Lothar. According to the new lore, they're now promoting tolerance and mercy. To make this even crazier, Eitrigg is not exactly like some orc veteran just regretting his past. I mean, this guy is an active chieftain of the Blackrock clan. I mean, he's actually one of the Horde leaders with the Horde Council. At the moment, Troll is the main orc representative, but the orcish clans still exist. They have their own chieftains, with Eitrigg being the Blackrock one. Now, this active current Horde leader has joined the actual Sons of Lothar. Well, I kinda understand the angle they're going with. I feel like this is a little bit crazy. I mean, if you read the book of Blood and Honor, you know the entire Tyrion storyline and his connection to Eitrigg and the entire not all orcs are bad, not all humans are like this. But I do feel like there is a little bit of a limit for some self-respect. I mean, sure, there is a way to make up for the past crimes, and it is now understood that the orcs were controlled by the Burning Legion and all, but let's just kind of keep it at that, I guess. I mean, based on the dialogues we had gotten in the Midnight Beta, so far it's not like he's some honorary member, a friend, or an orc just trying to make things better and apologize for what he did. I mean, he's literally a full-on member, and he joined after the war in Khazakar, so this is like pre-Midnight, after the war with him. Worst of all, this is about 2-month-old news, but Blizzard actually doubled down on this just like a week or two back. They added actual voice lines where he mentions joining the Sons of Lothar, so I don't think this is going to be one of those storylines where this is going to change by release, especially since the release is going to be in less than 3 months. I mean, the Midnight Beta is all but wrapped up by now. So, as I said, I mean, Blizzard on one hand is teasing faction conflict. They will continue to spread that we won't be in good relations in the future, but on the other hand, one of the active Horde leaders is literally a member of an alliance organization. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that the Horde leaders don't seem to care. I mean, as I said, this isn't like the Argent Dawn or the Argent Crusade or some neutral organization. I mean, this is literally the alliance organization. Like, this is the original alliance organization. The Sons of Lothar are older than the current alliance, and worst of all, originally this was the anti-orc organization. I mean, their second name is Alliance Expedition or Alliance Expeditionary Force. Now, at the same time, while the Horde has changed, they're no longer mind controlled by demons. I mean, the orcish capital is still literally called Orgrimmar, who, by the way, is the sole person responsible for the creation of the Sons of Lothar. So I don't know, are they going to cancel Orgrimmar? And by the way, this Eitrigg guy was the right hand of this Orgrim from Orgrimmar. Now, I know there has been some calming of the relations and Eitrigg himself participating with Denat Trollbane, but let's just not water it down completely. I mean, by the way things are going, it seems like Denat Trollbane is going to be the main guy that is going to accept the Yamani trolls in the future. I think there is a way to create peace, heal some old wounds, while also maintaining some sort of self-respect for their own people. I mean, they literally just could have created an organization called like the Veterans of the Second War or something like that, and this wouldn't be as outrageous. I mean, if this was some random orc veteran that joined them, it wouldn't be as crazy, but I somehow feel like there is some conflict of interest if the active chieftain, like the current chieftain of the Blackrock clan, is an active member of the Alliance Expedition. I mean, so far, some really crazy development. So, thank you for watching. Check out my video on who the World Soul is and what we actually currently know about Anhara, the ancient goddess, by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on Titan lore and Greek mythology that I've recorded live on site in Italy by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!